prefabricated stockade fences. And
Oh,
things
it's
like
all
that.
the fence stuff.
Yeah,
Got
got it. So those are the changes.
That's in here now.
I think I put. It's not connected, right?
Hey Doug.
Hey, bud. Where have you got the follow along?
Sure, quiet group. He's not. Waiting for the recording to start. So.
Recording in progress.
Turn it off on the laptop, sorry.
Right, now we're good.
Let's go ahead and proceed with the swearing.
You have to stand, no.
It just depends on how much fanfare you want to put into it, right?
Well, I'm gonna make an announcement at the next meeting, introducing the new council people, but
Okay.
yeah.
Okay,
You should,
so,
I'm the only new.
yeah.
oh.
Yes, I do.
Okay, well, would you like to raise your right hand? Okay, please repeat after me. Yes. I
I,
Steve Saxon,
Victoria Vine,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and uphold
that I will support and uphold
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
all applicable laws of the State of Missouri,
all applicable laws of the State of Missouri,
and the ordinances of the City of Normandy,
and the ordinances of the City of Normandy,
and that I will faithfully demean myself
and that I will faithfully demean myself
in the office of council member
in the office of council member
of the City of Normandy, to which I was appointed,
of the City of Normandy, to which I was appointed.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Son called me from San Pedro, California, where he lives, and says, "Mom, are you official yet?" So I'm gonna wait for the meeting right now. Go do your thing.
Well, you're official now, so let's call this meeting to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilman Saxonheimer?
Here.
Councilwoman Cleveland?
Here.
Councilman Jackson? Councilman Evans is absent. Councilman Nelson?
Present.
Councilwoman Bayard?
Here.
Councilwoman Campbell?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. Before we move any further with the meeting, I have an announcement to make. Cheryl and I, our plan to retire to the country next year was accelerated by a year when we found a house that we really got excited about. July, I'm gonna make an announcement, I'm gonna announce my resignation from the position. So the July meeting will be my last meeting as the mayor of City of Normandy. And we'll work hard to find a replacement for me. But it happened fast. We had an opportunity put in front of us, and we took advantage of it. So, but I've got 3 months here still to get things in order and make a smooth transition. All right. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? So moved. Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, at this time, we're looking for nominations for the position of President Pro Tem of the City Council.
I nominate Councilwoman Campbell.
I second.
We have a nomination for Councilwoman Campbell. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Congratulations.
Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, discussion of Council Bill 23-31. This is the mixed-use ordinance. We had some changes regarding fencing. And did we get the parking all squared away? Was there any other questions about parking within this portion of the ordinance? Now, we did refer parking in general to planning and zoning, but specific to the mixed-use district there's some parking regulations that were added to this.
I had a question about page 4 of 11. On part C, where it says required parking space.
Yes.
Spaces. Oh, that's a typo. Where it says 2 or more owners of a building may join together in providing required parking spaces. Do they need to have a written agreement on file with the city, or is it just?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yes,
Or
so,
should they?
yes, so the full provision reads, 2 or more owners of buildings may join together to provide the required parking spaces. Before any such shared parking agreement will be construed to satisfy the parking requirements of this section, the parties to such agreement must provide to the city a copy of a written agreement signed by the owners of any property subject to the agreement.
Okay.
Thank you.
And they also have to record it
That's correct,
on
that's,
the deed as well, so.
So it has to be recorded.
If someone comes and buys the property, they'll be aware that there's a lease, or there's a parking agreement, not a lease.
right, so subsection C then talks about, A, that your required parking spaces must be within 500 feet walking distance of the building that they are, attendant to. And where the required parking spaces are not located on the same lot, the usage of that lot for parking spaces for the other building has to be, there has to be something stating that is recorded with the county recorder. So that would apply where you have 2 separate lot owners that have decided we want to, basically, I'm going to let you share my parking lot, but also where you have, if this were adopted and this particular parcel were to end up zoned MU, this would apply to, I believe, lots where they are owned by the same owner, but they are right next to each other, and one lot serves as the parking lot to a neighboring building. I believe we have that situation up at the wedge. So,
Well, a question about that. If he agreed, one owner owns 2 parcels, so obviously they make an agreement to share parking.
right.
Can't that same 2 parties void that agreement after the fact?
What do you mean?
Even
They
if it's
just say,
recorded,
like,
they just say, well,
we
we void
forget
this.
about it.
We void this agreement now.
We don't want.
You don't want to do it anymore. Right. How would we make sure that they are going to keep doing it?
Would that remain a condition?
Well, it would, yes,
Okay.
it would remain, yeah.
It would remain a condition of their business license.
Well, if they need I think
No, it'd be their occupancy permit.
it'd be their occupancy permit or or a special use permit if that's applicable. Right, but their occupancy permit is going to be, an occupancy permit can't be issued until the lot and the building satisfy all.
Right, but that's a one-time thing, occupancy permit. Once they have their occupancy permit and they say, we don't want to do this anymore, would that be a condition of future yearly business licenses?
I'd have to check the terms of the business license
It is a
code.
potential loophole.
No, I
I don't think we would, I don't think the question is could we not, we may be able to revoke their
Revoke-
occupancy.
right, that's what I was thinking, possibly revoke the occupancy permit, yeah.
Okay,
Right.
And then I'd have to check the text of the business license, because I do believe there is a general kind of good standing requirement in that ordinance as well. But No, those would be, I think, the ways you would enforce that would be revocation of the occupancy permit, revocation of the special use permit.
All right.
Can I ask?
And I think you just cite them, sorry, Councilwoman, you could also just cite them and continue citing them every day, that they are not in compliance with the code, right? Because they would be in violation of the code if they didn't have an agreement to provide the relevant, the requisite parking spaces. So there's a number of enforcement options there.
Okay.
So how would you know if they're violating?
Well, I imagine how it would come up practically is there'd be a big parking issue,
Right.
and then we'd look into it and find out but honestly, if there wasn't a big parking issue, then we probably wouldn't know.
Exactly.
Right, but I mean, that's,
But then it's really not an issue.
but right, if it's not an issue until it's an issue.
So
and
I
then-
explain, that's where
Right.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask a question about E, and, a warrant of variance? Use.
What page is it?
It's on this, it's the next one, under, it's E, on this page 4 of 10. It's right there underneath what we're talking
No,
about.
are we on the printed one?
Well,
or
no,
the-
there's two different.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Which one are you on?
This little one right here. It's talking about variances. Yeah,
Well, I don't think it's,
Over here.
I don't think it's
Okay.
talking about a variance in the sense of, trying to find both versions that we have here.
the number of parking, oh, yeah, I'm not.
It's the same text, but the lettering's different for some reason.
Oh, okay.
Oh, because it revised.
Right, so in the version that is included in the packet, the red line version, that is an older version. The separate printout version incorporates changes that were made at the last workshop.
There's
So
the-
this is the most recent version. I apologize for the
I have the
confusion.
You're on the new one.
Oh, okay.
I'm on the,
Yeah.
I was on the old.
But I'm just asking about how the variance is done, because I think there's a board of adjustment or something that has to look at that, or your planning and zoning people have to look at that?
Well, so I think I think we should probably strike the word variance there and use something
Okay.
else, because I don't believe it is intended to mean a variance from the Board of Adjustment.
Okay,
Because if you look at it, it says that the required number of spaces may be modified by the city council. So if it's the council doing the modification by special use permit, then there's no need to get a variance from the Board of Adjustment. So I can change that language just to make it a little more clear, because I agree, it reads a little confusing.
Any other questions on Bill 2321?
I had a question about the fencing on page 5. So for B, do we wanna have like different types of fencing, or do we wanna like nail down which one we liked? Cause they can use any of these, right?
Right, so, yeah, they can use any of these materials in any of these, well, either of these styles. There's 4 materials and 2 styles, and then, one style that is, the prefabricated stockade panels in the standard picket treated wood are pretty common, and we specifically exclude those.
Like, do we wanna have, like, them pick, or do we wanna pick? I guess that's my question.
Oh, I would say that as long as it's one of those 2 styles, let the business owner pick what he wants. Since the white vinyl is, the vinyl typically would be a standard picket, but it would come in vinyl.
Yeah, I was thinking of like a more uniform look, like if we had,
yeah.
like how it would look if this person picked red cedar and then this person picked composite. And then this with the shadow boxes, and then this person, like,
You could have a real variety of fences running
Yeah.
all down.
Well, and I will tell you,
a bunch of neighbors'
unless
lots.
they're all built at the same time, even requiring shadow box or picket, if they're built this one this year and this one next year, I
They're
don't
gonna
think
look different.
they're gonna look
I
different.
mean, they're
then.
gonna
They're
look
gonna
different, but they're
fade
not
in.
gonna look like
Yeah, that.
Yeah, I don't think the difference is,
terribly different.
for me, I wouldn't think the difference would be objectionable.
Yeah.
It's just different.
I would like to see just one pick. I don't know how everybody else feels. 'Cause I
Yeah,
just
and-
feel like it's gonna be like, somebody might go with the cheapest one, and then somebody else might
Yeah.
go with like the more expensive, and then like, It's just gonna look weird.
Yeah, I think it should be more uniform.
But I'm telling you, they change product design so much. You're gonna say it has to be picket, and then next year that's not available. They got something else is available.
Well, the picket, I mean,
It's just not gonna be uniform unless unless the city builds a fence all at the same time across that common line. You can put it in text, but it's just not gonna be on.
well, could you, I mean, standard picket, can you specify the width of that board?
There's so many nice products out there that really look good, and like I say, it depends on what their vinyl mold is that they're using, you know. One's gonna, I think if we dictate, if our dictates are too restrictive, we're gonna be telling them they have to use this particular product. And I'm not sure that's especially a good
I
idea.
don't think we should do that.
Can we nail it?
We gotta, we set down some fence that they should be able to pick from, and we should just stay with that. I mean, we shouldn't be trying to tell somebody a business owner or anybody what they can have or what they can't.
I appreciate the concern, but I don't think you're gonna accomplish it by legislating it. I think there's always gonna be a variance in the appearance of those fences.
What if we gave them 2 options?
We have,
Instead of, cause it's like 1, 2, 3. You got redwood, cedar, treated wood, or composite. You got 4 options. What if you only do 2? It's either that
There
or
are different costs for each of those
Right.
products.
It's gonna
yeah,
depend on
cedars,
what they can
redwood's
afford.
almost prohibitive
I mean,
anymore.
real for a fence, I mean, if we don't vote on the fence, we can vote on the fence, but at this point, we already said that the fence, we can go with these fences right here. So we're gonna spend 20 minutes, 30 minutes talking
No,
about
we could-
fence.
we could-
If we wanna do something with it, let's do something with it or not.
We can spend 5 minutes
I
talking
mean,
about
we
it.
can do 5 more minutes.
A durable site-proof fence. Yeah, I've just always leaned toward less regulation as long as it's, workmanlike and attractive. That, I would always lean toward the less restrictive. Like I say, unless that, and that's what their building is.
Mhm.
Not all the buildings are consistent in architecture and materials and,
Well, it's open for discussion, so
yeah, no, it's,
I don't know what everybody else thinks.
let's hear what everybody else thinks. Any
Our-
other
our-
opinions?
Specifically, where we're talking about is the natural bridge corridor for the most part, right? Okay, so you can get a real cheap fence that will last maybe 3 to 4 years, maybe 5, maybe 8. But some of it's gonna start looking real ratty real soon. So if there's no provision about the maintenance of those fences, maintenance is usually the problem. And they can, the really cheap ones really will start to fall down very, very soon. It doesn't take very long in the weather to do that.
And I appreciate that, but if we said you have to use composite wood, I don't see vinyl in here though, and I think that should be added, because vinyl has come a long, long way from what it used to be.
If I remember correctly, there was
We
a
talked
lengthy
about
discussion
vinyl.
at the last workshop, and I think vinyl was removed.
I recall that
Was
as
it?
well.
Okay,
I think
All right.
Councilman Evans.
I remember that. I think Councilman Evans was
I
the
didn't
chief
object to it.
opponent.
okay.
But, again, I mean, whatever, I certainly have no opinion.
So redwood, nobody's gonna do because it's too expensive.
I
But
mean,
if we said it had to be cedar and standard picket, we only had 2 choices. I mean, we gave 1 choice. If we said cedar and it has to be a standard picket fence,
That's fine.
it's still not gonna look consistent.
right.
Well, it's fine, but it'll at least, it'll gray all the same color. And cedar's gonna gray and it's gonna look pretty much the same. Depending on its age, it's gonna look gray, light gray, dark gray, mottled gray.
Let's just go around the table and see, when we bring this to a vote, whether that has support or doesn't have support. Steve, you got an opinion on this?
I'm one of those people like you, no matter what happens, you're never, if you go back years, the design could change. So none of it will be perfect by far. I think they should keep the options.
Rick?
I really don't have a whole lot to say about it at this point, because the people are going to, some people are going to be able to afford certain fences, some are not. So, it's kind of hard to tell a person what they need to, how much money they have to spend on a fence that we think that they need to have.
Well, let's do this. We don't have everybody here.
And this is gonna be new construction, this isn't gonna be somebody that's already there. So if you're building a building, you
We-
can afford a fence.
We don't have enough council people here to know which way this is gonna go. So just bring it to the meeting in the form of a motion, the change you'd like to make to this language,
Okay,
and we'll just vote on it.
yeah.
But we don't know which way it's gonna go, because we don't have enough folks here.
That's good.
Or just table it.
I'm sorry?
Table it.
Yeah, well, we'll table it to the regular May meeting, and then at that time, bring up a motion that you'd like to, whatever change you wanna make, and we'll let the council vote on it and see which way it goes.
Oh, the other, I had a question about, wait, but I don't know if it's on this one. Hold on, it might not be. On page 7 on the old one, it said, the restaurant no drive-through was crossed out. But I don't see it on this one.
Oh, we were making restaurant no drive-through as, just a
Was it-
permitted use.
Well,
And then somebody wanted to put that back into the conditional use.
yeah. Well, that, yeah, so it was crossed out and got moved to conditional use.
Oh, okay.
I made that change of my own volition. If you want it as permitted use, you can, but after kind of seeing the process and some of the feedback from the recent restaurant special use permit, I figured maybe the council wants it as a special use.
We talked about that at P and Z. It came back as recommended as a permitted use from P and Z. I don't think the issue with the newest restaurant going in had anything to do with the restaurant. Had everything to do with the liquor license. What do you folks think about just making a restaurant a permitted use? They don't have to apply for a special use permit. They apply for a business license and a occupancy permit, and they open their restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's not on, it's not on this one either.
On this list, it says over here on page 9, about fourth of the way down, it says restaurants, no drive-through, and then it says restaurants, drive-through for the spaces, so it means,
Under special use,
Right here.
yeah.
Yeah, it's on page.
Well, that's parking.
Oh, that's for parking.
Yeah, that's for parking.
oh,
I don't see restaurant,
It's special
no
uses on
drive-through on
page,
page 7.
page 7, it's Q
Yep.
and, or R and S.
Is it
I would, well,
Well,
everybody.
yeah, if you want it as a permitted use, we can, I have no.
I would keep restaurants with drive-throughs as a special use because of the traffic considerations. But my recommendation, and I wanna hear from everybody, if it doesn't have a drive-through, do we wanna make them go through the special use process to open a restaurant?
No.
No.
All right, we'll move that one back.
All right,
All right,
Oh, so the, number, see, no, number 3, the prohibited use for like it was crossed out on this one. No, was it? Oh, for automobile repair and maintenance and car washes. Page 8, prohibited uses.
automobile repair and maintenance is under right now a permitted use.
This one has it under prohibited uses.
As what?
The way it's written, it's both. Good catch.
no, there's a difference between automotive parts and automotive repair.
Both of them, oh.
One says
okay.
this says automotive repair and maintenance,
Right,
car
right.
wash.
I was reading the repair and maintenance of appliances, okay.
Right, so under permitted use, D, automotive parts, accessories, and tire retailers would be like O'Reilly, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to automotive repair and maintenance would be like an auto shop.
Like the place down the
Kenny's,
street,
yeah.
Okay. So,
And I think the thought process for that was all the basically broke down cars that are in the parking lot right along that.
but they would be grandfathered in, right?
Oh, they're not in this
Oh, they're not
mixed
in-
use
okay,
district.
okay.
Well, no one is yet.
Yeah.
No one is yet.
What about, T, financial institutions, no drive-through facilities? Do we wanna keep that in there as no drive-throughs?
So I believe, no drive-throughs are a permitted use and drive-throughs are a special use.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Just so that there's a review for any traffic concerns
Okay.
that may come from the drive-through.
Okay, got it.
So the,
Special uses, I
okay.
see.
So fitness centers that, we can't have like fitness centers that are larger than 1,500 square feet, that's removed.
What's it?
It's on 9 of 11.
So that's, hold on, 9,
So 9 would, again, that's the parking,
Oh, yeah.
That's the
pay
parking
for
section.
parking.
Oh.
so right now we have fitness centers are a
I
permitted
thought they
use.
were, yeah.
If
That's
they're
V.
if they're under 1,500 feet, right?
So,
Square feet.
And, go ahead, Sam.
yeah, so removing it from, on page 9. So basically means, well, maybe that does need revision, maybe it should just be fitness centers no matter what. But there was, the cross out was from when, basically from the Florissant regulation. They have a regulation that if it's, a fitness center is over 1,500 square feet, it has to have 3.33 parking spaces per 1,000 square feet. And this just removes that requirement. So it would fall under, I guess just the general parking requirement,
Right.
which is 2 per 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
Which is the same as fitness center
Right.
under 1,500 square feet. So,
So,
I think it would make sense if the council was inclined to just get rid of that under 1,500
Yeah,
square
they-
foot distinction. It's
really
just
it
fitness
muddies the
centers or
water,
fitness
yeah.
centers or fitness centers.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
okay.
that makes sense.
Okay.
Oh, there's a typo, at least I'm looking at the new one, it's Kennelsville from.
Where's the typo?
7 of 10, number 2, special uses in the new ordinance. Page 7 of 10, under special uses, item L, Kennelsville.
Oh, yes it is. Thank you. All right. Moving on. Council Bill 24-12, amending how businesses obtain liquor license. The proposed ordinance obviously makes it less burdensome to get the liquor license. It removes the requirement that they solicit signatures from nearby residents. Did you want to elaborate any on that?
Sure. So currently, and I believe this was, well, we have discussed this before, but currently the neighborhood approval requirement in the code, section 660, the application, basically, the burden is on the applicant to approach and get signatures on the application from a majority of property owners within a distance of 200 feet. And if they are unable to secure those, then the council does not have authority to basically even consider the application, right? And that is too extreme. So we're trying to find a way to walk that back, to leave it ultimately in the council's discretion whether or not the license is issued. And what I'm proposing here this is page 3 of the ordinance, subsection 2C2A. In the case of a protest against the application duly signed and acknowledged by a majority of the property owners within a distance of 200 feet from the proposed location, the application shall not be granted except by favorable vote of 2/3 of the council and with the approval of the mayor, right? So this kind of flips the requirement and puts the burden on the residents who are not comfortable or do not like the proposal to lobby a written protest, and then that triggers a higher threshold under which the council has to approve. There are multiple ways to do this, right? This is one proposal that is very similar to the way protests work in the case of zoning changes. It would, I think, be entirely permissible probably to keep a requirement that the applicant has to collect the signatures, but then the heightened threshold mechanism gets a little trickier, because if they aren't able to collect, if the applicant is not able to collect a majority of signatures, then that's what triggers the 2/3 threshold, in which case you're probably going to have to vote 2/3 for every single liquor license, because it's not a matter, in terms of obtaining the signatures, it might feasibly often not be a matter of the residents refusing to sign, but rather just the applicant hasn't been able to get in touch with anybody because people are busy. It's hard to get signatures, right?
I feel like
So there's,
I feel like what I'm hearing is that like you're just like replacing applicant with residents. So then like, what if the residents don't want them to have a liquor license? So then you're putting the burden of proof on, somebody has to go out and get whatever the majority number is, which we haven't specified here. So then you're putting it on the people to like go out. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be a burden on somebody.
well, sure.
So why put it on?
Why put it on the residents
Why put it
instead
on
of
the
the?
residents?
And I want to address that. If people, the applicant right now has to go out and get people to say, I'm signing this, I'm not opposed to it. There could be residents totally indifferent to it, don't care, but they don't want to put their name on a piece of paper. Why? Why would I sign this? I don't care. Even if you don't have objection to it, you may not get people to sign that petition for it. And I think it has been really cumbersome. That's my position.
I think the more extreme case, and, well, I don't know if extremes are a word, because it's very common, is that the person lives in Kansas. It's all about the property owner. So maybe they live in California, maybe they live in Kansas City, and so it's basically on the applicant to send them a piece of the mail.
You know,
Hope that they send
well,
back
and
the-
let me offer this. Instead of property owners, can we also, our residents? I mean, if they've got a lease to the property,
I was going to say
they're
that
a
makes more
resident.
sense, because
That way, if you've got
Yeah, I'm
5
trying to-
people that rent a house, they should have also some say in whether that.
if the property owner lives in California, their opinion doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the
It's
residents,
who's living
it's
there.
the person who's living there, it's the tenants.
So then you
So
could-
what would be the majority number, the magic number that they would have to?
Well, it's just going to depend on how many of the relevant people that you need signatures from
But
live
would it be
within that
like
distance. So if there's,
60% of the total residents, or 40% of the total residents?
well, majority would be 50%, right?
Okay.
So
So-
50 plus 1. It'd be 51, it'd be 51%.
Okay, so
if you have-
then, is the resident someone, so let's say I got 3 adults living in my house,
Mhm.
and then one of the adults signs it, and the other 2 aren't home.
Well, and that's,
So,
yeah, and that's, we'll want to define who exactly we need signatures from,
uh-huh.
right? So,
So if we're gonna make these adjustments then how come not, we just don't make them for the people that are getting the signatures and have it? I don't feel like, when you talk about people in my neighborhood, and I know that they care about what's happening in their, like, in our area. However, if I'm going to like go out and say like, y'all need to walk around and y'all, you know, like, they are willing to like come in and like give their opinion and stand at the podium and things like that. But I feel like if we're saying to like someone who's like in their, somebody who's elderly that's lived there for like 55 years, you need to get out and walk around and like
No, they don't have to get out and walk
Collect-
around.
collect
They do have to
signatures.
put their name on that petition.
collect
They-
signatures though, but like,
This
why can't we
quantify,
just have, why can't we just have this change, 50 plus one of a resident, and you put it back on the people that are opening the business?
I think it should be left up to the residents. If the residents don't want the building, they need to go out there and vote against the building, the business. That's the bottom line.
If the council wanted to keep the general structure of what is currently in the code, I think it could be drafted that way, right? So I think the way we would want to draft it in that case would be that the applicant has to approach all of the residents, and we would want to define resident. We can talk more about that in a little bit, but so resident asterisk will need to approach all of the residents that reside within 200 feet of the proposed location. If 51% of, let's say there are 100 residents, if 51 residents do not sign the application saying that they're in favor of it, then at that point, the 2/3, the council would require a 2/3 majority in favor to approve the license. But if the applicant is able to get the 51 or more signatures, then it would be a simple majority to approve the license. Does that make sense?
well, let me ask this, let's just kind of go around the table.
I would,
Should the burden be on the applicant or the residents to object?
My understanding is, the person who wants to get the liquor license in their establishment, 200 feet, it's not gonna be 400 people or whatever. It's gonna be maybe, how many houses?
I think
would you
this time it was like 20,
20 signatures.
20-something
Yeah,
houses.
20 signatures. so-
29 maybe? Yeah.
But they must be from not just the renter, it's gotta be from the owner, and they have to get in touch with the owner and say, can I sign this? And it has to get information to the owner. So it's gonna be maybe 25 signatures, so I don't think that's hard to do.
So you're telling me that you would prefer that the burden be put on the applicant
Yeah,
and not the residents to object?
right.
Steve?
Yeah, I think if a business wants to come in and the residents don't want something done on that business, the residents need to step up,
So you're putting the burden on the resident
yes.
to object? You've stated your position.
Resident.
You're putting the burden on the resident. Okay. And you've stated your position clearly, that you would prefer to put it on the,
Yes.
I say owner.
so this again, we don't have enough people here to know how to give guidance to say.
Well, this is not exactly a middle ground, but for instance, right now it's written that a majority, let's say the burden's on the resident. A majority has to lodge a complaint, or has to bring a protest. It doesn't have to be a majority. In fact,
it doesn't.
I believe the special use protest is 30%. So it's a bit of a lower bar for the residents to lodge a protest, if that's somewhat of a middle ground. That way it's less signatures.
Yeah, because all it's gonna do is to throw it back to the council anyway. If they don't get the signatures, then the council can come in at 2/3 vote and decide what they wanna do.
I do think what Andy said at the very beginning is if we do put it on the business, I think practically, I mean, we might as well write in that you need 2/3 vote for a liquor license. I mean, because practically, I just don't think there's a lot of scenarios where people would get a liquor
So
license.
from the folks that are here, I'm hearing the burden goes on the resident, but you're hoping for a lower threshold of residents to approach, that have to object before it gets thrown to the council and needs a.
I would be okay with a lower threshold.
I'm sorry,
I would be okay with a lower threshold.
okay.
So for example, well, when we say lower threshold, we mean, that we want to keep the burden is on
The burden's on the residents, but the threshold isn't 50%, maybe 40%.
Okay, so let's say,
Well, Sam just said it, yeah,
right,
30.
and so in 405-790, for the special use permits, there's a 30% objection threshold. So if 30% of residents within 200 feet of the proposed location get together and submit a signed petition, then that triggers the higher threshold. That sounds like
Everybody good with that?
people are interested, okay.
Okay, so what if, like, okay, I'm gonna go back to my question. What if there are 3 adults? Okay, what if there's a couple?
I
So
have
I'm a married couple
I have a thought on that.
and I have, how many, do I need both of those people or one of?
Who's ever on the lease?
So right now it's drafted as property owners. So we do, again, I just want to confirm, we want to switch away from the property owner focus and we want to focus on the people actually living there, right? Okay, so,
You do head of household, we have occupancy permits.
right, I was gonna say, you could see either the lease or occupancy permit. That's probably the best way to do it, because not everyone has a lease, right? And then,
That's true.
so,
And we can actually validate that it's their signature.
right, and our occupancy permit does designate a head of household? Okay.
And so resident would also apply to business owners too. If they've leased that property.
Yeah, whoever's the primary on the business license.
Okay,
But is it owner or primary or head of household or?
And
or
So,
just?
well,
Taken?
see,
We don't do and or, 'cause that's-
yeah, and/or is gonna get really, really dicey with, yeah. I think you should pick one or the other. Realistically, a lot of the people are just gonna be the same people in either case, the resident, head of household, and the property owner, so.
Owner,
But-
lease, whoever is the primary person of that home.
and there could be several leases on the same commercial piece of property.
Right, so if you have one commercial piece of property and there are 3 businesses with 3 leases, each one of those
Constitute
is gonna,
a
is
lessee or
is
a resident.
a resident. And what I'm gonna do is,
Got a different address.
Yeah, well, now that doesn't make sense, because how do you calculate 30%? Off of the dwelling?
well, here's what I would say is, in the case of a protest against such application duly signed and acknowledged by 30% of the residents within a distance of 200 feet, and then I'm gonna include a separate subsection that says, for purposes of this section, resident shall be defined as the head of household according to the city's occupancy, or the occupancy permit on file with the city, or the holder of the business license in the case of a commercial establishment. Sam, does that make sense from an administrative standpoint?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's easy to count too.
So if
It's easy to
yeah, we
count
might
the
have to play
30%.
around with it a little bit, but I think we kind of understand where the council is heading with this. Yeah, we might have to play with it a little bit, but I think we have enough to
Okay.
work
They're
on.
bringing it in pretty good, whereas it's just a terminology right now.
I'm sorry?
I said they're ringing in pretty good.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just a
yeah, tighten it up
terminology
really
right now.
nice.
Just tighten it up. That's kind of perfect.
The rest of this language, all the red line was cleaning up what was a sloppy ordinance from the past.
There was a lot of repetitive language, so there's a lot of items that I struck, but they're not actually being struck because they exist elsewhere in the code. They still exist, but they're just elsewhere, because we didn't need the same language repeated 3 times throughout it made it really, frankly, a pain in the butt to interpret, so.
All right, moving on to resolution 2412, a resolution of the city of Norman, Missouri, appointing members of the Forestry Advisory Committee. But I'm only seeing 4 names here. Who's missing?
Well, Craig Brown is currently on the committee, and his term hasn't
Okay, I thought we
expired.
had to reappoint.
His term hasn't expired.
Okay, okay, thank you. So I will tell you, all four of these, Doug Aiken, David Graham, Debbie Rosso, and Matt Hubbard are really excited. I didn't have to work to get people to work on this committee. They were really excited to be on the Forestry Advisory Committee. So is there a motion to adopt Resolution 24-12?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Resolution 24-13, a resolution of the City of Normandy, Missouri, appointing members of the Historic Preservation Commission. Doug Aiken, Ed James, Joyce McGrath, Mary Ann Dunlap. There's gonna be one left, but I haven't gotten a confirmation, so there'll be another appointment later. This is 4 of the 5. And the council did vote to change this to a 5-person commission. So is there a motion to adopt resolution?
Wait, I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
Why is Steve at the bottom for planning and zoning? And
Oh,
Vicky-
I'm
and
sorry.
Vicky for council liaison?
Because Vicki is a council member, she can't be on this commission.
Okay,
So, but she is gonna be a liaison to the council.
okay,
To attend meetings, she has input and reports back to the council.
okay.
And Steve is sitting on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the ordinance requires a liaison for planning and zoning also.
Okay, that's what, I was confused.
So move.
So,
We-
let me just ask you the question here, there's only 4 names.
Right,
The fifth one.
well, I don't have confirmation on the 5th.
Okay, gotcha,
Yep, there'll be another appointment at the May meeting.
okay.
It's enough to have a meeting. It's a quorum,
Right.
and it makes us legal. So, we have a motion to adopt from Rick. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. Resolution 24-12, a resolution of the City of Normandy, Missouri, reappointing a member of the Board of Adjustment, Bruce Gardner, to a 5-year term. His 1-year term expired.
That's resolution 2414, you said 12.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Resolution 24-14, a resolution of the City of Normandy reappointing a member to the Board of Adjustment, Bruce Gardner. Is there a motion to adopt 24-14?
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. A resolution of the City of Normandy, Missouri, reappointing a member of the Parks Advisory Board. Daisy Lomax, Wayne Kearney, and Sherry Kearney, they're all excited about all the work that's going on. Is there a motion to adopt 24-15?
Motion.
There's a motion, is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. A resolution of the City of Normandy, Missouri, authorizing the city administrator to enter a 3-year agreement with Regis for data backup solutions, and this is resolution 24-16. Do you want to give any background on this, Sam?
Yeah, we currently are backing up our server in the cloud, and for multiple reasons, we need a new solution. One, Highway Patrol is kind of always changing their standards, and it seems that they are generally prohibitive when it comes to storing any criminal justice database in the cloud. So that's a big reason. Also, this on-premise solution is gonna be slightly cheaper than the solution we have now. And so, the reason why the contract is so long is because Regis, who's our current managed service provider, is going to be managing it. But basically what this is a 3-year lease of a piece of hardware. And it has to be 3 years, because they lease it through a different company, but our managed service provider agreement ends in 2 years. So all this big long contract is basically just a big contingency. If we don't renew with Regis in 3 years, then basically we have to at least keep the backup portion with them.
Sam, can I ask you?
that makes sense.
Haven't we had Regis in the past?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was,
Okay,
what's that?
we've done pretty good with them in the past, right?
I mean, they're not perfect, but, right now I think it's working okay.
How long ago has it been since, we terminated them, or they terminated us, or what, how long has it been?
Well, Mayor Beck, that was.
I will tell you, I had a lot of issues with them because I wasn't IT proficient.
Right,
And we
right.
were being taken advantage of.
Yeah, we were.
Now we've got somebody that oversees invoices and work done and understands more
That's
about
to
the
our
process.
police, that's with our police and our communication.
Yep.
Yeah, well, you always, so Regis does different things. Their bread and butter is the criminal justice database, and really they're a software provider.
Right.
The managed service thing, is a little, and they provide a bunch of different software, but they also do the managed service provider. And there's certain benefits to that, but I would say, I mean, we're 1 year into the managed service provider agreement, and frankly, it's going better than I thought it would.
What is the cost?
Well, it's mostly hourly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
What is there a cost, numbers?
It's on page 17.
You got numbers? Okay.
well, for
Oh, but
this
that's like the
agreement,
backup appliance, that's for backing it up.
but I mean, it's based off of
That's not the same.
what we use them for.
Right.
After we get to the cost thing, I see. Can I ask a question about the data storage? So we're getting, the drive that we're talking about is the big drive that's wherever Regis is, right? There's no local drive, it's all on the big shared drive, and it's a partition drive, so that ours is gonna be separate from other municipalities?
No, so, okay. So there are levels, and it depends on how risk adverse the council would like to be. So this would be a local backup appliance.
Okay,
So if the
Physically
server
sit.
failed,
okay,
we would still have backup.
got it.
They did quote me an option to rent a second machine, so that 336, double that, and then add another fee for their server rack space. And you can have it backed up on site and at Regis. But I think that's, at some point, it's just not worth it.
Well, at some point though, it depends on how comfortable you are with the security of your data.
Well, and so the security, I'm not worried about. What the benefit of not having a second device is if there's like a total lost fire here at City Hall, we don't have our data anymore. But frankly, I don't think that would be all that detrimental. I mean,
Yeah, I understand the difficulties, the legal difficulties of putting it in the cloud, because those things get breached all the time.
right,
And I mean, ideally, if City Hall came under attack for any reason, in terms of, data attack, how secure would that data be? And if it were to happen, it would probably be something toward the police or
Mhm.
record keeping there, and there's been.
Yeah.
So the drive is always connected to the network here. It's
That's a
constantly.
24-hour service.
Well, I'll tell
Oh, I
you,
know that.
so, and this may be going on beyond my tech experience as well, but, the benefit of having Regis on this, since they run the largest criminal justice database
Got
in the
it.
region, they've checked all this out with Missouri Highway Patrol, and it meets their standards.
Right.
And so, as far as the criminal justice, it's gonna be all those standards.
So, my question is this, when you're backing up the data, is that hard drive that you've got here always connected to the net or not?
Is it a standalone?
Is it, if it's a
Connected to
standalone?
the internet or to the intranet?
Intranet,
Yeah, you can access it from any computer. I mean,
the backup drive itself?
not the backup drive.
That's what I'm
The
talking
drive.
about, is the backup drive.
Okay.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm going beyond my expertise here. I'm
Okay,
not
got
sure if
it.
you're gonna be able to access.
Yeah, I mean, because it'd be a simple thing if you just run a routine whenever you do your backup and have that that piece of equipment sitting over here, but not necessarily connected to all the other machines except for when you need it.
Right.
Right.
Got it, okay. Yeah.
Any more questions?
Yeah, so the cost?
Well,
Still need
to-
answer that question.
So, yeah, it's $336 a month, there's a $380 setup fee, which is just labor.
Yeah,
$336 a month, and then if we were to not renew with them for the managed service provider, then it would cost, it looks like, I think it would be an extra $190 a month, is how I'm reading it. And that's if we don't, but right now that's covered under the managed service contract. And I'll say, right now, I think, right now we're paying about $500 a month to put it in the cloud.
So it's gonna be cheaper and safer.
Yeah, because when we put it in the cloud, we do get that extra level of security for governmental entities, but even Missouri State Highway Patrol says even that level's not good enough for their standards, is what I was told by Regis.
I mean, if AT&T data can get hacked
Yeah.
by everybody in the world, then yeah, you want something that's secure and as secure as you can make it.
All right,
so we vote on this, when does this start?
It would start, I mean, as soon as they can get the equipment ordered in. And, I mean, hopefully in May, we could cancel our current service.
Okay.
is there a motion to adopt resolution 24-16? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? Ayes have it, motion carries. All right, discussion of code compliance. Before we start the discussion of code compliance, at this meeting, because this is an open public meeting, or at council meetings, we shouldn't be mentioning names. If we have an issue we need to discuss, then that goes into closed session. Anything regarding personnel should not be discussed in an open public meeting. We're talking about policy in general,
Yeah,
and beyond that, it goes to closed session.
I'm sorry.
So we do get a lot, we've got a lot of repetitive complaints, and that's our biggest complaint is code compliance. Personally, I think it's a money issue, how much do we dedicate to personnel? Our code compliance officer now is also our occupancy inspections and does all the inspections on the new building going in over here, which eats up a lot of time. I had suggested, or not suggested, just planted the seed to Sam about, for strictly code compliance inspections and occupancy permit inspections, why don't we farm those out to St. Louis County? And it doesn't cost the city, the applicant pays.
Right.
Sam's objection with that was they're 4 weeks behind on code compliance inspections.
Well, the other thing is, we did that. You know,
Yeah.
we did that for a little bit. They are terribly unreliable. They approve things that probably the city of Normandy would not approve.
Right.
We couldn't get people to do that, like, you know, we hired them, and I said, okay, here's the list of vacant houses that I need you to go and do inspections on. And then I got back, oh, we're not gonna do the vacant houses, we're only gonna do, they just won't do it. And so I think it would be better to keep it local. When I ask for the process flows, basically, I just want to see kind of a decision tree. This happens, then this happens. And to see whether or not we can, I understand the lack of the availability of people. We don't have enough folks. But when council people get asked questions about, when are you gonna do something about that? We wanna have some reasonable answer to give them. And so there's, right now you have a place on the website where you can go and file a complaint. People can call up on the telephone, they can walk in here. So there's, multiple ways that, or somebody can just see something that they, like if people driving around can see it. But what I wanna know is, okay, once that complaint comes into the system, how does it come in, how's it recorded? What are the next steps of addressing the problem? How long does it usually take? What is the time frame between when the initial complaint goes out? I don't know, for various things, you give them like a month or a week or whatever. When does that go to the prosecutor? So the whole kind of step by step of how it happens would make it, because I'm not into talking about any individual human being's job here. I'm just looking at ways that if it's too much for one person, what can the council do to help to figure out how to make it better?
Well, abatement might be an answer that takes some time, but we've got a couple situations out there where citation written, citation written, citation written, citation written, they're not coming to court. They don't care. And you can't, unless you're gonna go to somebody's house for a code compliance issue and arrest them on a warrant. It's difficult. How do you enforce it? I don't know the answer to that.
I agree with Vicky, and I agree with you also, Mayor, because we've been having this problem for at least the last 5 years. I've seen it go to the prosecutor, and I'm sitting there waiting to get some results. No warrants go out, nothing goes out. And I had spoke about, we have a small public works down here where we have that little open area we have down there. And I'm just thinking how we could take it upon ourselves, if we got our own courts, and we got our prosecutors, how we can move on and move some of these vehicles or whatever over there, and even charge them, the person, the owner, for holding their vehicle that they won't take care of, and charge them.
Well, if it's on personal property, I'll let Andy speak to that. There's an abatement process, and it's cumbersome, and it's time consuming.
So anytime you're removing private property from private property, or even often towing vehicles from, well, first of all, with towing vehicles, whether from private property or public property, there is a pretty robust statutory procedure that has to go through. And the city's, I've reviewed the city's parking and towing code not too long ago, and it's up to snuff. It's a very time-consuming and cost-intensive procedure. But then even just abating any sort of a private nuisance on private property, right? There has to be a notice, then there has to be a hearing before the building commissioner. If I, prevail in that hearing and the building commissioner declares that the state of the property is a nuisance, then we have to issue an additional notice saying, this has been declared a nuisance, you need to clean it up. And then when they don't clean it up after that, then the city has to obtain an administrative search warrant to enter the property with police officers and the code enforcement officer, and realistically probably hiring a private contractor to do a lot of the cleanup as well.
I've heard that same story. The pandemic hit, that's 2024 years ago, and I still see those same vehicles 4 years now. And I've heard the prosecutor say, well, we're gonna get a warrant, we're gonna get this, but nothing's being done. So what's the timetable? Just like Mrs.
Yes, to that.
Well, yeah, I kind of understand the administrative search warrant stuff. I mean, we have had to take people to court and have judgments and all of that. There's 2 houses that we have judgments on, or the village did anyway. But we didn't have the money to abate those things. So there you go. So you have to have a budget that's put in place to address these issues. So.
Can I follow up on that, Councilwoman? So Glen Echo Park the village of Glen Echo Park obtained 2 permanent injunctions against 2 property owners, and that's an even more cost and time intensive process, right? That's a petition in front of the circuit court.
Right.
I mean, the reality is that prosecuting municipal ordinance violations in municipal court, the tiger doesn't have many teeth, right? there are statutory limitations on what fines the prosecutor can impose for a municipal ordinance violation. So if someone is written up for a derelict vehicle on their property, for a first offense in 12 months, $200 is the most that they can be fined, right? That's the maximum. People don't care, right? $200, they'll pay it. They don't care. They'll keep their car there. So it can go up in a 12-month period. That fine can go up to $400, right? But then again, you have to have a team of code enforcement officers out there writing tickets on a daily, weekly basis to everybody that's got a violation in order to really compound the issue to really start getting their attention, right? So it's a budgetary and a manpower issue to overcome some of the restrictions and that have been placed on the city's ability to enforce those
Well,
violations.
and I will tell you, obviously, we're all ears. I mean, it's on the agenda. We need suggestions because I know Karen doesn't want to throw up her hands and say, well, it's just too cumbersome and too.
No, none of us.
I don't either. I just want ideas. Like I say, money would be great. We don't have that, so we have to be more creative on how to manage this because I'm a big proponent of strict code compliance because, you know, obviously
It's one of the
that
most
affects the
important-
value of your home.
Right.
What your neighbors do affects the value of your home, so it's completely legitimate. I just don't, I wanna hear some constructive suggestions on how we, with a limited budget, can be more aggressive about getting compliance.
Yeah, it's not an easy task.
Andy, how do we see, say, things downtown? That they have a sign saying if you park there, you're gonna be towed. Could we implement something like that on these streets that have had problems and have an independent towing person?
So,
that?
some amendments to the towing code, that is something that actually Major Larson and I have been discussing. I haven't had a chance to put together an ordinance to put before the council. It is on my to-do list.
Yeah.
So, yes, Major Larson has done quite a lot of extensive research into local, other local towing ordinances. And so I know what the county has a sticker system, right? It's not even a sign system, it's a sticker system. And certainly kind of beefing up our towing ordinances is something that could be done. Now, of course, we don't tow. The city of Normandy does not do the towing. We have to hire a third-party contractor to do the towing. But certainly we can look at ways to strengthen the ordinance and then talk about the practicalities of enforcement kind of
Well, I
after
will
that.
say,
right?
with that said, we've towed quite a few cars.
And I will also say
Yeah.
that, yes, the police department has really increased the towing.
Now, those are ones that are on the street.
Right.
The ones on private property, it's
Right.
just so much more
It
difficult.
is hard, it is hard,
No,
right?
I understand that. I was just trying to think of a way that it would indirectly take some of the city people and their manpower from having to do this continually. If they see a sign, someone can call a number and a tow
But we've
truck
already
will
got
come.
the ordinance on the book. We just
That
stick
way, because that's what you do in the city. If they say you can't park between 4 and 6 there, and someone parks there, their car is towed like that. And not by the city necessarily, it could be an independent person, an independent towing company.
We've had some, and I guess you do the same thing, when the police have something towed, we didn't have to pay for it. The towing company gets the car and they
Right,
take it
no,
away, and
right,
the
yeah,
person
we
wants to
don't.
get their car back,
Has
just
to
has to
pay
pay.
Right.
We don't pay for tows.
So,
Yeah.
so Sam, do we have an ordinance where it states that if there's a derelict car sitting in the yard and they put a cover over it where you can't see the license plate, because I'm sure the license plate hadn't had license in 2 or 3 years. If there's a tarp over there, then that's okay?
Andy, you have, that's less of a Normandy City Code issue and more of a US Constitution Fourth Amendment issue.
Yeah, So the way the code reads is that if you have a derelict vehicle, I mean, you can't have open storage of a derelict vehicle. And I don't believe that having a cover over the vehicle fixes the problem, right? The issue, though, is that in order to enter onto private property, to even investigate a potential ordinance violation, let alone actually start removing private property, you have to have probable cause to get a warrant on the property.
Right.
And if just having a car with a tarp over it is not probable cause to think, oh, that's a derelict vehicle, right? You need something more than, because you could have a tarp, you could store your everyday car under a tarp because you don't want, you want to protect it from birds and things like that, right? So that's not going to be enough, and that's what's tough is, you have to then have, I mean, you could theoretically have an officer keeping an eye on it every day, and after a certain amount of time, after 30 days, you've noticed, oh, that car hasn't moved once in 30 days or 60 days. Now maybe you're building a case for probable cause to get a warrant to investigate and go lift up that tarp. But I mean, to lift up that tarp, you need a warrant, right? And so you have to have established a probable cause to get in there, and that's what's tough, is building that case, because there are a lot of cases to build, right? So focusing on one car, it's playing whack-a-mole, right? That's the problem.
Go ahead. Karen, you got something?
See, our problem in Ward One is not so much a derelict cars, but it's just houses, that we have people with problems with housing, especially the renters. We need to ticket those people as nuisance, because they're causing us too many issues.
Yeah, how much does it take to, when is it a nuisance property? How many citations
Right.
before it's a nuisance property?
So, there's no magic number where a certain number of citations equals a nuisance property. We have the nuisance code, and we enumerate certain nuisances, and I can read through some of those. But it's not an exclusive list, right? So, it's kind of on the city to articulate whether something falls in as a nuisance. But, our code enumerates 14 different nuisances. I mean, it includes things like trees, tree limbs, and other appendages that are kept or maintained in an unsafe or dangerous condition, buildings, bridges, or other structures that are in a dangerous condition, sidewalks, gutters, or curbstones that are in an unsafe condition or out of repair, open puddles of liquid, right, things like that. It's those,
Trash and debris?
trash and debris, burning, things like that, those can all be nuisances, right? I'm not gonna sit here and read the entire code, because it's fairly lengthy, but those are the kinds of things that we're talking about. But even something like never picking up your dog's waste, and you've just got a yard of landmines, right? That's a nuisance under the code. That's a nuisance, right? And that's something that the city could haul someone in for a nuisance hearing before the building commissioner, and then if they don't clean it up, the city can go clean it up, right? The only exception to the hearing and warrant requirement for nuisances, there's a statute that specifically says that overgrown grass and just piles of trash that are in somebody's yard, the city can just issue a letter, and if they don't pick it up within 5 days, then the city can just go mow the lawn or just go remove the trash. And technically, I don't think you need an administrative search warrant to do that, but we also don't want to get into a situation where someone is accusing us of coming onto their property without a warrant, so we do get warrants for those. It's a pretty simple process. Rick does that pretty frequently, I think. I know, at least maybe not right now, but certainly over the summer, he was mowing, it seems like every day he was mowing a
We'll
lawn.
have a batch of search warrants for Goldie next time he sees them, but, yeah, I'll also say, I mean, nuisance abatement hearings, they do have a cost to them. I mean, depending on how much this person wants to come in and fight, there was 2 people staff time, and then we've had Andy come to the nuisance abatement hearings as well. Because depending on what kind of nuisance you're abating, I mean, there was a lawsuit filed recently in North County against the municipality because they said that they were holding them, but then they couldn't prove that they held the nuisance abatement hearing. There's legal risk when it comes to this stuff, so it's a question of how aggressive you wanna be. But even if you slap the tax bill on that and you do get it paid back in 10 years or something like, or, well, that would be extreme, but let's say you get paid back in 2 years, or 1 year even, you're not gonna recoup the costs of holding that nuisance abatement hearing. So sometimes it's just more effective unless it's a true health and safety, which is really what nuisances are supposed to be, true health and safety hazards, like a tree that's going to fall on a house or something like that, to just issue tickets. And then to answer your question about, going back a little bit, the process, almost, with very few exceptions, almost everything starts with a notice of violation, which is not a ticket, and generally 10 days to fix it. And, you know, if they're in contact, then they can get an extension, but usually if they're in contact, they're not the problem properties that I would think the council's worried about.
Right, we're worried about the ones that people who never do anything, and they get the notices, and they get the tickets, and they might come and, they're not gonna show up in court. And yet, these are the ones that our constituents get in our faces about.
Yeah, I understand.
I interrupted you, and then we,
No, no. I'm just more concerned about the ones who violate the codes, period. Like, we have a neighbor, and I don't know if it's a problem for their neighbor. If their house smells, it has an odor from their home, because their home is always dirty. Is that a violation? It's a violation for them because they can't even open their windows for that person, for it's smelling so foul. Then there's always trash in the area, in this house all the time, that the code enforcers always there about their trash. When will that start being a nuisance? Because if we're using resources for them to always come out about the same thing, the same thing, isn't that a violation, or is that, like, something should happen to these people that continue to, and I'm not talking about that, you know what I'm saying, when we're at one particular house, but we have other houses that continue to have the same issues, the same violations, but they're still there. And these are renters.
maybe could,
Maybe we go after the
So-
owners,
so
not the renters.
should the citations be written to both?
I
The
thought it-
property owner and the resident?
I believe under the property maintenance code, they can be written to both.
And then before they ever get issued another occupancy permit for that home, or anybody can be added to that occupancy, if they've got any outstanding citations, unpaid citations, I mean, that would mean something if you get the
Why can't they update,
homeowner involved. Go
if
ahead.
they're renters, why can't they update their, occupancy permit every year? And if it's a problem that we have as far as a home, I mean, that's an ordinance, can we not
But the
issue
ordinance
that,
that we have already
permit?
says that the
Can we,
homeowner and the
Can we
renters.
do a permit for them?
You know
If it
what, I
becomes a
asked an Andy
issue?
question, can we make renters get an occupancy every year, but not other homeowners? I don't know.
I would say owners,
Yeah,
but then give tickets out. Or, some way we should be able to hold them responsible, and if they're not paying the tickets or whatever, if they're renters, they come up for occupancy, then can we deny it?
Right. I would think so.
What
I
happened
I
in,
can look into that.
what
I mean,
happened
it's just
in,
something to give us something to play with, because
Yeah.
you're not gonna be able to really bring them in and say, hey, come in and do this job.
Right.
But if
Didn't
you're not a
Greendale have this
homeowner-
problem?
If you're a homeowner, we just fine.
I'm not familiar.
I feel like
They're the homeowner.
Greendale had a lawsuit, or they implemented what Kevin's saying, where you had to get an occupancy permit like every year
As a renter.
as a renter.
see, I think they had trouble with that.
And I wanna say that it went to court.
Because if I'm renting a property and I'm obligated to get an occupancy permit every year, but my neighbor who happens to own his property, we're both residents, he owns his, I'm leasing mine, but I'm required, I think there's an issue with that, and I'll let Andy.
Well, I mean, it would, if it was challenged, it would be challenged under the equal protection clause,
Yeah.
right? It would just depend, I don't believe, well, I don't necessarily want to give a legal opinion right now in open session about whether or not there is
Right.
whether or not renter versus homeowner is a protected class under the equal protection clause.
Okay.
If they weren't, let's just say that they aren't, then they would, that, any sort of ordinance drawing a distinction along those lines and treating renters differently than property owners, that would be subject to the lowest form of judicial scrutiny, which is called rational basis, where just the city needs to have some sort of rational objective that they are trying to accomplish, as opposed to if we adopted ordinance requiring annual occupancy permits for men but not for women, right? Then we've triggered a higher set of scrutiny under the equal protection clause, because gender is a protected class, right? So
In some states, I mean, California is really protective of renters, very protective of renters. So there are certainly some states that do that. I have a question, the housing database that you've got, and a lot of the problems are with renters. And if we go after the owners, it would be kind of interesting to look at how many of these the rental properties that are problematic are owned by the same companies.
Right.
Vinebrook Homes, for example, is notorious. And they've got lawsuits all over well, through the Midwest. But if we were to go after that and then bite the bullet and take them to circuit court. Take them to circuit court for the number of violations and that this company is a nuisance.
That trigger of thought, if, for example, if there's an outstanding unpaid citation from this property owner,
Right.
Right.
what about every property he owns in your city is not getting an occupancy permit because as a company.
There's a violation.
They're in violation of
have to
Normandy
look at-
City
have-
Code.
would have to look at the code.
But I know you name dropped a certain, Vinebrook Homes, if you look at, they've got so many shells, it's always VB2 LLC, VB23, and like Vinebrook versus VB versus Vine B, like every LLC is registered differently. It's kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know what their business model's like, but I don't know.
And
if
then
that would
there's
be
these
very-
guys who go on TV, like Chad. Chad owns a house in our community that's vacant. You know, we buy vacant homes, those kinds of commercial people who come in and just buy properties and let them sit.
Yeah.
So I think going after the owners of these properties and I mean, we ran one of the worst ones in the world out of Glen Echo Park. I mean, he's been well-known. John Oliver had him on as an example on the national news national show. He owned two homes, and we were, just by keeping at him, we were able to get him to sell those houses. So, I don't know that they're in any better shape than when he was here, but, at least we got him out.
Well, I don't know if there's gonna be any conclusion to this. I mean, it's really big on the radar with staff. We know that's the biggest complaint we've got from residents is code compliance. And we'll continue to pursue solutions and are all ears open if anybody has ideas. And when it comes time to budget talks,
Yeah, I think we need to look at that.
we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, and see what we can do to give more money if that's what's needed. I think that it's just a matter of people not having enough time to do all of these things.
Well, he needs an assistant too, that we passed the budget for him, but then I guess we're Amber.
Yeah, or, yeah, to
For
use
that,
Charles.
right,
Yeah.
He needs some help. He needs some help. Well, question, since he falls under public works, can public works help in some kind of way with code enforcement?
Well, kinda did the other day. So, I mean, Possible, yeah, but especially when it comes to abatement. But again, I mean, I do think, the mayor mentioned it, but the building inspection thing is really important, and I would say that takes up at least half his time. It also pays for at least half his salary. So, with the inspection piece, like, it pays, so, I mean, even if you move that to county, you're not gonna fix the budget problem. So, kind of when you look at it like that, we really only have half a code enforcement officer budget.
And I feel bad for him because he keeps getting slammed. And I know, I see him out there and he could only do so much. Because he's only one person, he's doing two jobs. But he really needs some help.
If we had something like the sticker program you were talking about, Public Works, we're through all the subdivisions, you know, a lot. If we had some kind of sticker program where we could put a sticker on a car or on a property
Yeah,
and be able to track it, that might be able to, it'd be like having extra people working, and it'd just be part of what we do, cause like, part of what I do is, I drive through a portion of the town every day.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes I send Rick pictures, sometimes I knock on doors. But if we could track it by like a sticker, like they do, the
Oh,
police
different
department.
color ones?
You could do colored ones, you could just track them, that this one's been given notice, you know.
Got it.
A simple spreadsheet or
Yeah, and I would be happy to talk with you after
Just
this,
an idea.
but having, you know, Public Works potentially help out, I would just wanna make sure that they get all the training so that
Right.
they know the nuisance
Well-
procedure and, notice procedures and all of that.
It's
because-
something that I could actually
Yeah.
do with my background, cause I'm a housing inspector
There you
and,
go.
and I'm a law enforcement
There you go.
retiree,
Well, there
so,
you go. Solution.
you know, that's something that maybe we could,
Yeah, I'll talk about
but we'd have to do it the right way, it's, yeah.
Let's continue that conversation.
that might
Yeah,
be-
because even with permits for dumpsters and that kind of stuff, I know that Normandy used to put stickers on those dumpsters, so that if anybody saw one, like the one that was out on Natural Bridge, nobody knew how it got there. If it had a sticker on it, we would know, oh, they've already got a permit for this.
Well, it's like when Rick, when code enforcement tags a yard, it's a pink, I know it's been tagged, cause there's a pink flag in it.
Got it.
So I know that he's gone around and got that one. And
Right,
that, 10 days from now, something's probably gonna be happening,
right.
whether
And,
it's
and a
gonna
lot of
get
these
cut
people
or
who
not.
who don't do anything and just leave stuff, they don't care about that little flag, they'll know.
It's just another piece of trash.
It is.
So that sounds like a good idea.
Well, there's one today, the yard was full of flags and the pink one was there, but it was freshly mowed. So I knew Rick had tagged it,
Okay,
but it had been mowed.
Let's, in the interest of time, we're an hour and a half in, we still got one issue on the agenda. Sam did put out an RFQ for an insurance broker for the city of Normandy. I'll admit without shame, the one that was a 776 page long
Yeah.
response.
Well, that was-
Oh my goodness sake, that was painful. But we did have a lengthy interview with the folks from Olis Acres Arnie. They're big into risk assessment and risk management as also as part of their insurance broker services. And Sam gave a report. I hope everybody read it, but we want to bring this to the regular May meeting in the form of a resolution to approve entering into agreement with Olis Acres. And Sam, I'll let you had some more background on this.
Yeah, well, I'll just briefly, I'm not sure how familiar all the council members are with how commercial insurance and commercial insurance brokers So we will not pay these people. When you when you sign on to a policy with a carrier, who's the people like Travelers, and, or MoPerm in our case, you know, they're the ones actually giving you insurance. The broker is just the person who's supposed to sell you the insurance. So whenever we sign on with the carrier pays the broker. And so like right now, we're direct with MoPerm, which means there's no broker in between. And we don't get a discount for that. So it's kind of weird, but the brokers get paid from the carriers. And if you don't have a broker, then the carriers just get more money. That's just how it works. So right now, I don't want to bash a firm, but right now the broker we have is mostly focused on group benefits, and they have done some good for us in the past on the group benefit side. But they're not really risk management focused. So I would like to switch to a broker who is focused on risk management. So they will review your policies and let you know. They'll do site visits and tell you things that they think are risk. And that goes for work comp and liability. And they will help you come up with a risk management plan. Hollis Acres Arnie, I think it's the best submission because they have municipal experience. They're heavily involved with the Missouri Municipal League, and they work with a number of counties and cities throughout the state. And even not in their municipal division of their office, just generally, for all their clients, they do their whole models based off of risk management. Now, I'll tell you, I mean, any salesperson is going to sell you the world. We'll see what the services actually are once we get them. I'm not, and I only say that to say this isn't going to solve all of our problems, but I do think it's going to be a significant help. And right now, we do need a broker who is focused in risk management because we need to find carriers, and we really do need our broker to work and find us a good policy from a different carrier. And it's a tough market right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if, everyone's aware, but the insurance market is hardening. It's getting harder to get a policy written for you. It's getting way more expensive. And that's gonna impact your home insurance, your car insurance. It probably already has. It impacts, commercial insurance for everybody in certain sectors. Usually, municipalities always get hard because we have things like, potholes and things that are void from sovereign immunity, law enforcement. Municipalities are particularly risky, so it can be hard to get a provider. So we really, my hope is that they're a broker that can help us get a risk management plan and still make us desirable to brokers in this tough market. There was a second submission that I think they could probably do the same thing. They're Higginbotham. But ultimately, I think Hollis Acres Arnie had the better submission. And then we did have one submission that was like 900 pages long. I'm sure they would do fine, but
Their facts were lost in their BS, though. My goodness.
Right.
It's hard to-
and they're not as local. They're based out of Indiana. And then there was one other submission that was benefits only, and I think we need the full package and focus on risk management.
So, any questions?
Well, when are we gonna vote on this? Is
At
it
the regular meeting.
At the regular meeting?
Yeah.
I was going through stuff today, and found a risk, well, no, it's an emergency management plan. Frank Minetti did in
Yes.
2019.
I might still have copies of that.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
have 2 boxes.
Yeah, and right now, I think that that might be something that we need to revise a little bit. I mean, all the contract cities had maps in there, but ours just didn't include us in the fourth ward. But I think getting that kind of information maybe on the web or getting it out to people might be important too, because, you know,
Well, and this is leaving the topic of insurance, but a lot of communities will have what's called a CERT, which is, oh shoot, I'm not gonna know what that stands
Is that
for.
the-
Community
Yeah.
emergency response team.
yeah.
There we go. Yeah, community emergency response
Right,
team.
and every city was required to put that together some years ago.
So there is a St. Louis County Emergency Management Plan, but CERTs, you know, you have regular meetings with lots of different stakeholders, from the Red Cross to the police, to the fire district, and you all get on the same page, you exchange business cards. That way, when something bad happens, you know who to get in contact with, and there's those relationships are
Right.
established. And if you're, you know, the certs are really being productive, you maybe even have a plan for that specific disaster. So I think I'm not sure what's already in place other than that. I don't know if something like on the 24-1 level would cert, but someone needs to take it up, and I would definitely be interested in.
Yeah,
And
I
help
mean,
me with that.
you've got the same copy of the thing that I had, and, Tamika might know how that was put together, too,
You probably put a big part of it together.
yeah. Cause I mean, the information's still pretty good, you know, but we don't know whether those telephone numbers are all the same.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I think, no, I've got, let's see here.
We have you need us to go into closed session for, I see it on the agenda, I wasn't aware. There was
We
any
had-
update.
I mean, you said that there's a standing legal closed session. I don't know if you were serious, but
When we talked about, related to, the Simmons litigation,
yeah.
we could go in and get
I mean-
the councils. I've kind
Can
of,
we just do that in here though, rather than have, because there's nobody else?
Well, we would need to still go into closed session.
We-
well, sure, but could we actually do it in this room? I mean, we
Yeah.
could do it in this room if no one is
Is that a
here.
game
but-
room?
As long as we turned everything off, then we could do it in this room. It's nothing major, and actually, I think, talking with my co-counsel on the lawsuit, we've kind of, I was gonna talk to you about it, I think we've kind of figured out what we wanna do. But let's not leave everyone in suspense, let's go to the closed session and talk about
Is
it.
there a motion to go into closed session for a legal matter? We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Sexton,
Yes.
Councilwoman Cleveland,
Yes.
Councilman Jackson,
Yes.
Councilman Councilman Nelson.
Yes.
Councilwoman Van and Councilwoman Campbell.
Yes.
Ayes have it, motion carries.
Okay, so we gotta turn off.
I'm gonna lock the front door too.
I'll get it.
Thank you.
gotta go out that way anyway. Unless I can hear you. I'm knocking your stuff down.